AITA for dumping my ex publicly and not paying him back for the engagement ring? Just want to say this is going to sound insane, but I am not trolling it up. Me and this guy were together for 3 years. We're 19 now. We never talked about the future until a year in. Before then I'd try to discuss it and he would change the subject. In short, I wanted kids, he didn't. I wanted to stay in Ireland, but he didn't. I wanted to get married, he didn't. When I realized it was a bad match I broke it off, but he asked to get back together, saying we were too young to worry about the future, and we got back together. This happened a few times over the next 18 months. In this time we probably spent more time apart than together. We knew early on that we wanted different things, and while marriage and kids are something I would want further down the line, I wasn't concerned about his open dislike of marriage and kids because 19 is too young to get married anyway. If I were dating him 10 or 15 years from now and he didn't want to get married, then I might have an issue, but when I'm barely out of my teens, it's not a huge concern, and just loving him and wanting to be with him is enough. When I went to see him this time I was again considering breaking up with him. Aside from the long-term issues, he is also inconsiderate and has a mean streak that I really don't like. So when I arrived at his place, mentally debating breaking up with him for good this time, and he told me he wanted to take me out to dinner, I assumed he wanted to break up too, publicly, so I wouldn't cause a scene. I don't normally cause a scene, but being in public tends to prevent yelling, and we both yell every time we break up. In the last year, he has asked me 2 things that looking back now stand out to me. First, he asked about jewelry, what kind of stuff I liked and what my taste was. I assumed it was because my birthday was coming up and he was getting me a bracelet or something, so I told him simple and delicate, silver or steel rather than gold. If there was a color then blue, nothing flashy or expensive, as both my job prefers plain jewelry and it's just my personal preference. I also said, go cheap. The other thing he asked me was how I felt about public proposals. I told him immediately that I, personally, disliked them, as I felt I wouldn't be able to say no, even if I wanted to. I feel like public proposals are okay when they've been specifically requested and agreed on, but one that's totally out of the blue is not okay at all. I assumed he was asking about this because his friend had just proposed to his girlfriend of several years, publicly, and she'd accepted but admitted to him after that she would have preferred something private. I never thought in a million years that he would propose, so you can imagine my shock when we went to dinner and the first thing he did was propose. The ring was huge, gold, gaudy, red gems around a diamond, and the whole thing was the size and shape of a Super Bowl ring. He got on one knee and held it out to me. We were in the middle of this popular restaurant and the place was packed. Everyone there could see what was going on and wasn't even trying to hide that they were looking at us. I said no. Well, I didn't so much say no. I ran out of the restaurant. He drove me there, so I got a cab back and drove home that night. I realized running out wasn't the best thing to do, but I didn't know what else to do. I could feel everyone's eyes on me, and all I knew was that I didn't want to marry him or accept his proposal. I felt like I couldn't even speak. I was so upset about the whole thing. So I just got up and ran. I just want to take the opportunity to say here that I really don't care about the rings. Honestly, when I want to get married, which is absolutely not when I am 19 years old, the right person could just turn to me and say, wanna get married? And I'd say yes. I wouldn't even need a ring. I know I'm focusing on the ring and the public proposal a lot, but that's only because of 1, how far away it was from what I'd told him my taste was, and 2, what happened next. I didn't hear from him until a few weeks later. He said that he thought a proposal was something I'd want, but he saw now that it wasn't. He said that he was out of pocket for the rings. He'd bought us both the same one and gotten them engraved. He linked me to the jeweler's website and the ring was up for €1,450, about $1,650/£1,300. When I asked why he was telling me this, he said that he'd hoped I would cover the cost of mine. He said that as they'd been engraved he couldn't get a refund. He'd hoped that I would say yes to the proposal, in which case he wouldn't have asked me to pay, but I said no. He also said I'd embarrassed him by saying no in public and should have said yes, and if I was really against it, waited to say no when we were alone. We both live in small towns where gossip spreads at church. Enough people were at the restaurant that night that both of us got asked about it at church on Sunday. He has since messaged me saying he's debating calling in a lawyer to sue me for the cost of my ring, €1,450, and he also says that I have caused him emotional distress by turning him down in public, and have publicly humiliated him for both rejecting his proposal in public and leaving him to deal with church gossip, which I had no part in spreading. He says he can also get some money off me over those other two things. So 1,450 euros for what he spent on my ring, and extra money for emotional distress and public humiliation. I think his legal claims are all and he wouldn't have a leg to stand on in a court of law, but I am not a law student or a lawyer. He is studying law currently and has an internship at a legal firm. What do I do about all of this? Do I need to prepare myself for a lawsuit, or is it not even worth worrying about? Thanks in advance, smile. Now let's head to story 2 that's super interesting. Tifu by accidentally teaching my roommate's parrot to sing Seabat. My roommate doesn't know yet. Okay, so we all know the story with Seabat, no need to go into that. My roommate is out of town for a week, and I have the whole apartment to myself. 4 days ago, I, 29 meters, asked my GF, 29F, if she would like to enjoy some delicious fun time while blasting Seabat. She and I are both super weird and are open to doing this kind of dumb stuff. To no surprise, she laughed and said yes. I just thought it would be funny to experience. To my surprise, it really wasn't as weird as I thought it would be. It might be that the love I have for her is so powerful, that it left only about 5% of my brain power focusing on the dolphin sounds in the background. The next day we decided to go at it again, only this time Seabat was a surprise for her. After a few minutes of kissing, I turned on the music and we both started laughing hysterically before getting it on. I even lasted longer than the day before, which I now regret. Here's the problem, which I stupidly did not even take a second to consider. While my roommate is out of town, I'm taking care of his parrot who dwells in our living room, which shares a very thin door with my bedroom. This is no ordinary parrot. This is a chattering lory, same bird as that red one on YouTube who goes you where this bird does not shut up. He makes so much noise that I've naturally learned to ignore him after a year of living with it. Anyway, somehow it never even crossed my mind that these parrots learned words and sounds and mimic them surprisingly accurately. Before leaving for work yesterday morning, I made some coffee and sat down in the living room for a bit, just relaxing and closing my eyes. All of a sudden, I hear the first few notes of Seabat in perfect pitch and rhythm. I open my eyes and this little dude is staring me dead in the face. 5 to 10 seconds pass, and I hear it again. I just grabbed my things and left for work immediately. I had to escape, figuring I'd just find a way to fix this or explain this later. But the more I think about it, the more I realize that I'm just dead. My roommate isn't weird like me and he hates when I say silly things to the bird. When he comes back this weekend, I'm worried he's gonna give notice and leave. Any advice on how to go about this would be greatly appreciated. I'm sweating as I'm writing this, and no, for privacy reasons, I will not be posting a video of the bird.